Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Nick Egan Times. On this episode, we have an amazing guest. We have the incredible Marc Friedant. Marc is the dynamic CEO of the iconic Robbins Brothers fine jewelers. Marc's journey from the world of finance to leading one of America's most iconic jewelry brands is nothing short of truly inspiring. Marc has helped guide Robbins Brothers through transformation and triumph from steering the company during the pandemic to leading an employee-led buyout that has redefined its culture, direction, and future. Welcome to the inspiring Marc, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Nick. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too, my friend. All right, let's jump straight into it. Take us back. Tell us about your family and your life growing up and everything relating to that.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, about 3,000 miles away from Los Angeles, where I find myself today. Oldest of three children, and had a pretty typical upbringing. Mom and dad, go to school, work after school, try to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and kind of started down one path as far as what I had hoped my future would be, and took a bit of a turn while I was in college, and here I am.
Wonderful. And tell me about Robbins Brothers and the rich history behind it.
So Robbins Brothers is a brand that started or traces its origin back to 1921. Actually started up in Seattle, Washington, and then over the years and multiple generations of the Robbins family now finds itself here based in Southern California. And we now have 14 stores, 8 here in California, 4 in Texas, 1 remaining up in the state of Washington near the origin, and then 1 also in Arizona.
Incredible. And what do you personally love most about Robbins Brothers?
So it's, the history and the legacy of the brand being around for 104, 105 years now. Our business most recently is primarily focused on engagement rings and wedding bands. So a very happy business, if you will. And we get involved with typically young couples or older couples who are expressing their feelings and their love for one another. And we get to help them celebrate those times. And so a bad day in a store is usually filled with happiness and excitement for people. And it's just really a great space to play in.
Yeah, impressive. And tell us about the story, how you got into Robbins Brothers and how that transpired.
Okay, so for the last 20 years or so, I'm a finance guy. I grew up a finance guy. I worked in accounting, became a CFO a long time ago. But for the last 20 years or so, I worked with companies that were owned by private equity. And my role typically was to get involved in a business as the chief financial officer and help get the business ready to be sold. Because in the private equity space, it's pretty simple. Private equity buys a business, they want to invest money, they want to improve performance, and then they turn around and want to sell it. And so back in 2018, I was hired by the private equity owner of Robbins Brothers at the time, and charged with get it ready. We're going to sell this thing down the road. And that's how I got into the business.
Incredible. And how have you experienced being a CEO from when you first started to where you are now?
So it was interesting. Right before the pandemic, so very late 2019, early 2020, I was moved into the CEO role. And my first opportunity to be a CEO in a business after being CFO for so many years. And I think the pandemic actually changed my psychology. I was very used to the numbers, very black and white. There wasn't a whole lot of gray that you had to play. But the pandemic was something that forced me to think more about the people in the business rather than just the numbers and the financial performance of the business. And so it was very transformational for me personally, as the pandemic forced us to close all of our stores. Nobody knew how long it was going to last. Nobody knew what it was going to look like on the other side, if there was even going to be another side of the pandemic. And so that really gave me reason to to think differently about my career and what I wanted out of my business.
Well, it's working out well so far.
So far, yeah.
What's the biggest sale you've ever done at Robbins Brothers, or that you've been a part of?
Uh, we've done a handful of low to mid six-figure transactions. We're periodically we'll being based in Los Angeles, you do have customers who come in that are high net worth. We've sold some jewelry to professional athletes, and so we're not selling $1 million pieces, but we do more than our share of $100,000 to $300,000 goods throughout a year.
And what's your personal favorite piece of jewelry that you've seen?
So I'm not much of a jewelry person. We carry brands that have very intricate, finely detailed settings that an engagement diamond will go into the center of. I have fun when I walk into a store and maybe we have a blinged out chain or in the industry a watch that's been iced out, which is not something that we typically sell, but it's fun to be exposed to those goods when guests come in and they're looking for something special.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And what inspires you daily?
Just the fun of it. I'm at the point in my career where I'm really trying to build a legacy with our organization. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how we can build a culture and a brand around the history of Robbins Brothers. Not for me, but for the people who are part of this. Being around as long as we have been, we have many employees who've been with us 15 to 30 years, which is pretty cool. And there's been a lot of changes in the world. And I really want something where our team feels like they're part of something bigger than just this is where they go to work on a daily basis. And so that's really what my focus is, and to build something that has long-standing, lasting, well beyond my time at Robbins Brothers.
It's inspiring. And what has been the most challenging time or specific part of your job that's happened so far?
So the hard part is and I struggle with it every day, is going from purely being a numbers guy to having to think about people, think about culture, think about legacy, think about guest experience. One of the things that I did have the good fortune of being exposed to is there was a period of time where I actually had to run the retail stores, and talk about asking me to reinvent myself and do something I had zero understanding of. But it was really good because I got to see a part of the business that when you're behind the scenes counting the cash, you don't have to get involved in. And it changed my perspective, and it gave me a much better appreciation for what our folks deal with on a daily basis. By nature, I always revert back to the numbers, the spreadsheet, the Microsoft Excel, and I always have to keep reminding myself that there's much more beyond just how do you keep score.
Sure. And how do you manage staff?
Um, I'm I don't like to give direction, but I drive people crazy by asking lots of questions. And it's sometimes challenging for folks to really understand that I'm not asking questions to defeat them. I'm asking questions to better understand the thought process that they've gone through to come to the recommendation or the decision that they're making. And so I ask questions to learn, and I ask questions to help them solidify their direction that they've come to and make sure that it's based on sound decision making. And it works most of the time. And the good thing is no one is ever penalized for making a bad decision. They may be challenged in me trying to understand how they've come to it. But if you make a bad decision, you get an opportunity to make another decision. That's the reality of operating a business, because we sell jewelry. We're not we're not saving lives or anything like that. So a bad decision is a bad transaction or a bad direction, but nothing's going to be fatal in the decisions that we make.
Well, that's insightful. And what does success look like for you?
For me, long-term success is building a great company that people want to work for a long time, that our customers are out in the marketplace singing our praises. Um, Customer referral is the most important thing for us. We spend a lot of time working towards positive reviews on that a guest can leave when they've been in the Robbins Brothers. We just opened a brand new store on Friday, and you couldn't have scripted it any better. The first guest came in, and he had purchased his first wife's engagement ring from us in one location. He purchased his second wife's engagement ring from us in another location, and just so happens to live 2 blocks away from this brand new store. And the excitement that he had in coming in and seeing this building and realizing that it's Robbins Brothers and it's part of the same legacy and experience that he had before was pretty cool. And, I couldn't have scripted it any better. We're going to use him as a spokesperson because it was that great of an experience for us.
That's incredible. And would you say that's the best, I guess, customer experience or compliment that Robbins Brothers has had so far?
Absolutely. We pride ourselves on tradition, legacy, and trustworthiness. We sell something that it's challenging to put a value on. And so what's really important for us is we want to stand behind the product that we sell. We want to ensure that it's the quality standard that we stand by. When we select diamonds as a company, we reject 9 out of 10 diamonds, that they're not good enough to be sold in one of our stores. And we've been very true to that. And so that's our way of demonstrating to our consumer that what they're buying is of high quality. We operate with high integrity, and we want to be your jeweler of choice throughout your jewelry buying lifetime.
That's amazing. 9 out of 10. That's remarkable.
Yeah. So it's, I'm sure we're paying for that somewhere, right? Suppliers don't like getting 9 out of 10 back when we don't accept them, but it's been a quality standard that we've stuck to for years.
Sure. And what's the hardest decision you've had to make as a CEO?
It's always about terminating somebody. It's difficult when someone isn't being successful in their role, and I question myself if I put them in the role. Did I misjudge? Did I undertrain? Did I set an expectation that wasn't appropriate? So that's a difficult one, especially someone who is giving their best effort, and the best effort may just not get the job done completely.
Sure. And how do you stay innovative in a mature business, which is Robbins Brothers, especially in, a competitive marketplace too?
So we partner with, in our bridal space, we partner with some of the top designers in the world. And so innovation is really coming from them. When you talk about an engagement ring, you're really talking about a pretty small piece of real estate. And there's not a tremendous amount of innovation, so to speak. There's creativity and there's style. So shapes of stones go in and out of style. Accent stones go in and out of style. But it's not really as much innovation as you might think. Another part of our business, whether it be bracelets, necklaces, earrings, there is much more fashion to those than there is in the bridal space. And so combination of partnering with the right designer brands and also having our own in-house design folks who work with manufacturers to come up with our house brand line, if you will, keeps us up on trends. And we're watching trends, whether it be clothing, fashion, shoes, watches, whatever it may be, you end up picking up little pieces of other fashion type decisions that are being made.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing. And what have been some pinch me moments of your career so far, where you stand back and you go, "Wow, this has happened," or "That's happened."
From a positive or a negative or
It
both?
can be both, but yeah, I'd say positive. We'll go positive.
Well, positive was, I think I made the right decision jumping into the CEO role back in 2020. Sometimes I go, "What the hell was I thinking?" Um, it's been a great experience. It's kind of forced me out of my comfort zone of hiding behind the scenes. So that's been really great. Um, I think it's been challenging. There's been a lot of headwinds in certain parts of the industry over time. There are competitive dynamics that change from time to time. We're in an interesting category. You compete with large retailers that have thousands of stores, and you compete with the family jeweler down the street who is fifth generation. And so we kind of have to navigate and protect ourselves against each of those and be very nimble in that.
Tremendous. And what excites you most about the future of Robbins Brothers?
So my expectation and hope is to grow the business. We'd love to have more stores than we have today. Like I said, we have 14. We're not looking to get 50 or 100 or anything like that. But if we go 14, 16, 18 and keep it close, replicate the model that we've now developed here in our Pasadena location, and really become the jeweler of choice in the communities that we serve. Not looking to be a national brand, but really a tried and trusted retailer for the consumer to buy all of their jewelry needs over a lifetime, whether it be the engagement ring, the wedding band, the anniversary band, the push present, I got promoted, I want to buy you something nice, whatever it may be, Mother's Day, Father's Day. That's really where we want to play.
Wonderful. And how do you stay grounded as a leader?
I'm generally a pretty down to earth, humble guy. This is this is a little bit out of my comfort zone in itself, and so I just try to be who I am. I try not to take myself too seriously. I love to speak with people. I love to learn. I love to challenge. I love to mentor, and I just love to be around folks who are passionate about what we're doing here at Robbins Brothers.
Great. And how do you manage personal life and work life?
Um, Fairly easily. Fortunately, my kids are grown, and so that's less of a challenge than it might have been 15 years ago. Um, in today's world of technology, you can be connected all the time, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I sometimes have to be mindful of put down the damn phone and not worry about emails. I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm a workaholic. I'm very committed to the business, but I'm able to balance it pretty well. I give the personal life the necessary time, and I probably over-index towards the business life.
And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, and what's the best piece of advice you would give someone, especially I guess someone that's relevant to what you're doing and what might happen in the future as a CEO, potential CEO?
So probably the best personal advice I ever got was don't come to conclusions based on what you learned in a textbook. The textbooks throughout your educational time gives you pretty black and white. And, the textbook answer may be right in 30%, 40%, 50%, but you can't just rely upon that all the time without taking into consideration all the variables. And the textbook never takes into consideration all of the variables. And so that's something that I've learned early on in my career the hard way, because, you come out of school, you're a young whippersnapper and you know everything. And pretty quickly you realize you don't know a whole hell of a lot. Um, and what the advice I would give is don't take things for face value. Ask lots of questions. And, just to have the dialogue, challenge people, challenge them to understand their thought process and the logic behind what they're coming to you with, empower them to make a decision. So you don't want to squash any of their creative thoughts or ideas by saying, no, you can't do that. But try to come to something where the answer turns out to be well thought through and coming from a place of good thought and taking into consideration all the variables that go into making that decision.
That's great. Really great advice. Terrific. And if you were 18 again, you could change anything. Could be personally or professionally. What would you change?
Um, so I started out thinking I was going to be a doctor, but never made it through pre-med too well. So I'm not sure if I would have pursued that instead. Uh, if I didn't, I probably would have gotten out of my financial comfort zone much earlier in my career. Because although it took me till way into my career to do it, I think I probably would have experienced more, had more fun in hindsight, and not be so stuck with, oh, this is how I've always operated. This is my job. This is what my career path is intended to be. I would have forced myself out of my own comfort zone, which is probably why I give people that advice today. Don't don't take, there's no single path through your life or through your career. Experience lots of different things and build yourself through evolution and rounding rather than single-minded, single focus, one direction.
Awesome. And if you weren't at Robbins Brothers, what would you be doing?
I would probably be a hired CFO for the next private equity company that's looking to get sold, because that's what I've been doing for a while. It was just kind of the path that I was taking. I was passionate about it, but as I've learned, not nearly as passionate about building something that has a much longer standing legacy behind it, which is what we're trying to do here at Robbins Brothers.
Incredible. Marc, thanks for coming on the podcast. I do appreciate it. It's incredible everything you've done, you're doing, and Robbins Brothers. I wish them nothing but the best. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure. Thanks very much for having me, Nick.
You're welcome.